in connection with Swami Vivekananda's lecture in Chicago in 1893, September, I'm reminded of an incident that I think Swami Yogananda mentions in his autobiography, Autobiography of a Yogi. A little boy, Swami Vivekananda was then going around lecturing in halls in the city, and a little boy came to one of the halls with his mother. And the moment he entered the hall, he said, "Mama, I've seen this man, I know him." And she said, "No, dear, how can you know him? We haven't been here before and you haven't seen him at all. There's no chance you've seen him." He said, "No, I've seen him. You know, the day brother pushed me into the pool and I was drowning. I knew I would surely drown and I was dying. And then I prayed desperately under the water. And there under the water, I saw this man with closed eyes sitting and meditating. And he smiled and helped me out with the pool." That's what he said. And then that was forgotten. And then one day he came. He was an admirer of Swamiji, like so many others. He came with a silver cup to give to Swami Vivekananda. He said, "Please take this cup as a memento." And Swamiji said, "No, don't give me this cup. Keep it for your guru. I'm not your guru. You can keep the cup for your guru." And then Swami Yogananda mentions this. He said one day an aged man, around 80, he came to him and gave him a silver cup. And then he related that incident. He was a little boy who saw Swami Vivekananda at the lecture hall, and he recalled that incident. And Swami Vivekananda said, "I am not your guru. You can give the cup to your guru." And so he gave it to Swami Yogananda. There's such strange things, and Yogananda smiled, and he also knew intuitively that he was a guru and it was for him. So Yogananda, now these are all advanced yogis. Bengal had a lot of yogis, and there are books that talk about the yogis and sadhus of Bengal and other places. Lots of Bengalis in the Himalayas in the north, Banaras, Kashi, Vrindavan. I don't know if there are books in other languages, Indian languages, but there are so many people who are unknown. They don't go about giving lectures and things like that, or stay in ashramas and all that. But they are quiet, keep to themselves, and do sadhana. And through sadhana, they realize God. They're always in a state of bliss, which a normal person cannot, experience, because the human being, the normal being, he uses only a fraction of the brain, which the scientists have attested to that. So most of the brain is not used unless you do meditation, yoga, and things like that. You will not be using your brains. We are only concerned with the day-to-day life, how we live and things like that, how we're going to manage today and tomorrow and the day after, and what we leave for our children and grandchildren. So that's why we're obsessed with that kind of thing, always running and running and running to accumulate more wealth, so that because always we are in a very terrified situation, as if there's everything's so insecure, They have no, faith in the Lord. They don't want to believe in God. So things like that. Whereas, and then the knowledge of English, everyone thinks that chap who knows English, he's a wizard. He knows everything. Whereas a person who's a dark-skinned chap with skinny legs and all that, he is just a magician or a chap practicing witchcraft. He doesn't know anything. So that is the tendency, even among Indians nowadays. So there are a lot of atheists and people who look down upon religious people. But the thing is, I just wanted to relate that incident, just because Chicago event just went past the anniversary. And there are so many strange things, like there was an incident at that time on the ghats of Varanasi. There, he relates, I think it was his guru Yuktesh who saw it. He sat there on the ghat and he was supposed to meet one of the sadhus. Then he noticed 3 lights coming from different directions and disappearing into a hole in the ghat on the riverside. And then he learned that it was a conference of 3 yogis, saints, sons, or whatever you call them, to discuss the welfare of the country. So things like that keep happening. You don't have everything in air-conditioned rooms and things like that, because there's a strong spiritual current in India. You're very fortunate to have been born in this country, and if we don't develop spiritually, we are losing a lot. That we must realize. No just copying everyone, whatever they do and things like that. Just try to find your own spiritual depths, your country, your things like that. Once Yogananda, when he was a boy, Mukundra, there was a place called in Hooghly district of Bengal. He was going to a saint because he was interested. Lots of Bengali boys at that time, they went to yogis and sannyasis and all that, so that they could progress spiritually. They wanted to go to the Himalayas and renounce life. Not poor people, they are all rich people, zamindars and rajas and things like that. Suppose someone like Gautam Buddha renounces, then it's a renouncement. A rich person renouncing is something, not a poor beggar, who renounces nothing, but he's going around like that. They say that Jatilo Mundi Lunchita Kesha Kachayambra Bhaukta Vesha, that thing, going out to beg because he lives on that money. Like that, Sriramkrishna talks about a chap who renounced his home, went away to Vrindavan or Kashi or somewhere, and then from there he writes home saying, I have found a job, don't worry about me, let me accumulate enough money and then I'll be back. So that's the kind of people we have who are not completely, on the right path. They go through all kinds of illusions. But a true seeker who wants an aspirant, a spiritual aspirant, who is serious, people like this Mukundra I was talking about, Yogananda, he was going to Tarakeshwar. There's a renowned Shiva temple there, Tarakeshwar Shiva, a fine linga. And there he was going to meet another person some distance away, several kilometers, very far in fact. And then from the station, he went, saw the Shiv temple, and he said, should I worship or should I do pranam or what? And then he said, after all, it's just a stone. Why should I bother? It's just a stone after all. So he went on, trudged all the way in the sun. Then when he reached that place, a yogi, a normal chap, not even a sadhu, that chap, he had prepared lunch and all. He somehow knew that he was coming. And then he asked him, if God is everywhere, can't he be there in a stone? And this chap was astounded that the question that he asked. He knew that he did not stop and do pranam at the linga. So since God is everywhere, we know that, Sanatan Dharma, we know that is why we worship everything. We worship nature, we worship man, woman, child, everyone. So for us, God is not someone in the sky making babies or issuing farmans and all that. Our God is everywhere and He is within us. And we are with Him always. But we don't experience the bliss because our mind and the senses and the intellect are always running outwards. So that's why meditation is necessary, and always self-contemplation. What is the meaning of life? Why are we here? Why are we born? Things like that. If we can really progress, there are things, Gautam Buddha, he talks to those Jataka tales. They are not fairy tales. They are about his previous lives, what he was in different lives. So if you do meditation and all that, even you can know about your previous lives. If you really can progress, it is not difficult. But you don't have to announce it to everyone, just at least for your own, they just come, Siddhas and things like that, those Siddhis they talk about, you don't seek them. The moment, your those lotuses awaken in the Shushumna, all those flowers, they blossom, and different kinds of Siddhis naturally come. Your senses are very, 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 very sensitive, you can, that's the smallest thing can be, sensed. So that kind of thing comes, which others don't even maybe know about, you get to know. You see a person before you see him, or, like once I was going to Belgaum, I think last year or something, I went to the ashram there, and when I was returning, a chap dropped me at the station, an auto chap, sent from the ashram, some Muslim chap. He dropped me there, and I was walking past the bookstall. Train was yet to come, and the chap at the bookstall, I think it was the Ramakrishna Mission bookstall, he sat there, and he's a very religious person. He said he was meditating, and there, sitting in the bookstall, he saw me. Before I had even come, he'd seen me, that I was coming, and I would meet him and talk to him. That is the kind of thing. So it is not all, mumbo jumbo and all, as people think. If only our young people and even old people would stop and think and strive a little, then they would be happier.